Nick, how much do you feel, you did Brooklyn, which is based on certainly real situations, how much do you feel you can stretch historical truth?
Well, I mean, it's a very simple story, Brooklyn. It's the story of a girl who emigrates from Ireland to New York during the 1950s, which was true of hundreds of thousands of people. And so you can more or less come up with any version of that, and you would be able to find a historical counterpart. There was... I also trusted Colin Toybeen, the author, because he's a great novelist, and in fact I wrote the scene where Ailish, the lead character, arrives in New York and she comes to Ellis Island, and Colin describes all this beautifully in the novel, and I did my own version of that, and then just before filming, one of the production team phoned up and said, you know that people stopped coming to New York through Ellis Island in about 1934. And I said, no, I did not know that. And I called Colin, and he said, oh, that's interesting.
I'm not Irish.
You don't sound Irish.
I need to make this clear. No part of me is Irish. I don't have Irish parents or grandparents or anything. I'm Italian. Well, my parents are, anyway.
So what were you doing at an Irish dance? Don't the Italians have dances?
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to tell you the one. They behave like Italians all night.
What does that mean?
What has been your most difficult moment, your biggest mistake you've made professionally, and how did you recover from that?
Just a small question.
Wow.
I would say this, and I don't know.
I started trying to write scripts before I wrote books, and I didn't know what I was doing, who I was writing for, what they were, and there's a lot of time I won't get back. I think if I'd known what I know now, if I'd known that back then I would have saved myself quite a lot of work.
Have you revisited any of those scripts?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
I don't even know if they exist. They weren't written on computer, they were written on typewriter.
What's that?
Right.
One of the things I've noticed working in films and books is that there's way more opportunity for self-doubt in movies, because you get turned down endlessly by endless numbers of people. Whereas with my books, I'm dealing with my editor, and it's a long-established relationship, and unless I've completely screwed up the book, they will publish it, and if I've completely screwed it up, he will work with me very patiently to get it to a state where it's publishable. Whereas with movies, it's every week a financier. No, we're not interested. An actor's not interested. A director's not interested. And each one, I think, if you do have self-doubt, you're being hammered into the table just by the process. And one of the great reliefs about writing fiction is not having to deal with that.
Nick, you gave up teaching to write. Was it a difficult decision?
No, not when I was, I was, whatever I was, 26 or 27 years old. I didn't have a family. I was with terrible teenagers all day. It wasn't a big decision. You can always make teaching money by working in bars or teaching part-time or whatever. There was no money to give up. So it really didn't feel like a very high-risk thing. The thing that gets you down with writing, I think, is you feel like you're walking a plank and everyone behind you has got jobs and mortgages and you're getting older and older and you're still the guy who everybody else has to dip in for when you go out for a pizza. And that can become a bit embarrassing. But I've never regretted embarking on the journey, no.
How do you find the screenplay as a form compared to the novel? Is it more difficult? Is it less free?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the thing you notice, first of all, is the space, that it's 120 pages with not very much writing on them. And in a novel, if you're writing a scene that works, there's no real reason to stop writing that scene. And if it's 15 pages and everybody's enjoying those 15 pages, then an editor will leave it and say, this is great. But a 15-page scene in a movie, that's a big that's a big moment, and so it's having to lose stuff that you liked or were proud of or were pleased with simply because of the demands of the form.